We are here at C2E2 with what could be the hottest writer in the industry, Scott Snyder.
Well, thank you. I don't know about that, but thanks for having me.
All right. Well, in the space of about 2 or 3 years, you've, in my opinion, come from obscurity. You onto American Vampire. Now you're writing Batman. Did you see that like 3 years ago? Did you see that happening at all?
No, I really didn't. And in fact, 3 years ago, I was here and I pitched Detective Comics like just over there, like 100 feet away, to Dan DiDio and Jeff Johns. I was like, please let me do something with James Jr. It'll be good, I promise. And they were so nice to let me do it. And all I had out was American Vampire issue 1. And I had a signing, and like it was nobody. We were just like giving it away. So this place has a very dear spot in my heart. And also, no, I never expected it, but it's been a dream come true. So thank you to you guys and everybody else that has been supportive from the start.
When you pitched Detective, at that point, Bruce Wayne was no longer Batman, right?
Yeah, when I pitched Detective, they hadn't done Return to Bruce Wayne yet. It was still sort of Batman and Robin, Grant Morrison's Batman and Robin, which I love. And I wanted to do something that really focused on a villain that would challenge him and Commissioner Gordon as a kind of generated new villain in Gotham that would almost be like born out of the streets in a way where he's like, I am your worst nightmare. Because for me, Batman's rogues are so wonderful and so great because they're all extensions of his fears about himself. So Two-Face is kind of like if the duality of his life becomes out of control, and the Joker is like who he'd be if he went down into the cave and never was Bruce Wayne again. He'd fall into this kind of madness. And so I wanted to create a villain in James Jr. that would be sort of Dick's worst nightmare about himself, which is you're too soft to be Batman because you're more compassionate than Bruce. You don't have the same baggage, and I have no compassion. And for Commissioner Gordon, it would be like, I'm a mystery you can never solve. You think you're such a good detective, but you can't even do it. So that really was the idea behind that stuff, when I first pitched it. And I'm just excited that people responded so well. And I loved writing Dick Grayson. I'd love to write him again.
And how far into your detective run did you find out about the reboot?
Way past that. I mean, I was on Detective when I came up with the Court of Owls story, because I was doing a lot of research into Gotham's history for that and for Gates of Gotham. And I was super excited about the idea of doing a story for Bruce where the villain almost would be a secret history of Gotham. Like, it would be about the history of Gotham, its dark secrets of the past, kind of at war with the heroes of the present. So in that way, I came up with it while I was about 6 or 7 issues into Detective. And I pitched it to Mike Martz, and he said they were bringing back Bruce into Batman, and did I want to do it in Batman? I said sure. And I started writing it, and then they came up with the 52. Then they were like, guess what? It's going to be Batman #1. And I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I can't handle it. So luckily, though, for me, it was a story I cared about and was working on before, long before there was a 52. So, yeah, so I got to do it the way I wanted pretty much from go.
So now you had already had the story, but because Grant Morrison had been doing Batman for so long. Now I'm a big fan of his work, but it was a little bit controversial. Some people hated it. Was there a conscious attempt to get Batman back to basics, just doing detective work? Was that something you decided, or?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it wasn't really in comparison to Grant. I mean, I love Grant for his ballsiness, frankly, and the fact that if he has an idea or 10,000 ideas in one issue, he'll put them in, even if they're crazy. And that sort of bravado or that bravery, I guess, as a writer is one of the reasons he's one of my favorite writers. But for me, I'm a little more steak and potatoes Batman, and what I wanted to do is a story that was really about Gotham in a gritty and dark way. So it wasn't so much in comparison to him as it was taking sort of inspiration from how brave he is about his own stuff and saying, even though that's so popular what he's doing, I'm going to try something that I find would speak to the way I love Batman. And luckily, people have responded well, so I feel good about it.
With all the references to Greek mythology, did that all come from research, or was it you had started writing the story and then you thought, I'm going to pepper this with mythology and with, like, how did it work? What came first?
Well, for me, it really was, I had the symbol of the owl because of the way it's functioned in Batman's mythology with Owlman, all the kind of stuff from Earth 2.
Okay.
And I knew it was going to be a really menacing symbol, and then the idea would really be to try and research it. So I researched it, and I found out that in ancient Athens, there were actually owls on the coins because it was a symbol of wealth and power, and I was like, oh, this is going to be perfect.
Yes.
So a lot of the research was born out of sort of once I decided on the things that were emotionally essential for the story, that the owl is a scary thing to Bruce, then it kind of follows from that, I guess. So you try and make it stem from the emotional story itself.
This storyline is becoming so popular now it's actually turning into a crossover. Is it possible that it could be stretched too thin by this crossover? Are you worried about that?
All I can say is the way we did the crossover, honestly, is this. It wasn't designed to be a crossover. It was designed as a story in Batman, and at a certain point, the Court of Owls launches an attack on Gotham that it would have been ridiculous if you didn't know what was going on with Batgirl or Robin or Red Robin in terms of what they were doing to stop it. Otherwise, it would be like, is Gotham really a shared city, you know?
Sure.
So what happened was I called up Mike Martz. I was about a couple issues in, the editor on Batman, and I said that was the case. And he said, well, why don't you ask the other writers if they want to tie in or write the characters into Batman? I was like, I don't want to write the characters into Batman. I'd rather ask them if they want to do their own story. So I literally emailed Gail and emailed Pete Tomasi and Tony Daniel and Kyle Higgins and said, listen, here's what's happening in Batman. And most of them knew because we had been talking. But I was like, there's going to be a moment when we can cross over, and if you want to, and if it fits your story, here's what you can do with it. Go for it. If you don't, no hard feelings, don't do it. Please, stick to your story. So some books, like Batwoman, had a great story going, and they didn't want to do it, and they didn't. But strangely enough, or luckily, like about 10 of them did. So they all crossed over. So all I can say is, yes, do I worry that it stretches the Court of Owls? Of course I do. I worry about doing a crossover. I worry about... But every story is incredibly self-contained, meaning if you read Batman and nothing else, you will not be missing any pieces of the essential Batman story. Does Batman do things as Bruce Wayne in secret moments that will be in Detective and Dark Knight? Yes. So if you want to get the full story about what happens in the crevices of Batman 2, you can go pick up Detective and Dark Knight, and they're great stories. They're fun. But you won't be missing a piece of the essential story by reading just Batman. And similarly, if you're reading Nightwing and you don't read Batman, you should read Batman. But if you're not reading Batman, you're only reading Nightwing, which is a great series, obviously, and I love Kyle, you will not be lost. You will understand what's happening in Nightwing, and there's an emotional arc for Nightwing that happens only in Nightwing that won't be referenced in Batman. It's about him, and the same in Batgirl. It's about Batgirl. So all I could do is say it wasn't designed as something manipulative to the readers to say, buy more stuff. What it was designed as, in the same way with Animal Man and Swamp Thing, it was basically like, here's a story that ties us together. Do you want to be a part of it? Writer, do you want to do it? Let's do it then, sure. So I hope it doesn't dilute it, only because it doesn't dilute it in Batman. Batman itself is exactly what I wanted it to be. It hasn't changed from go. There's nothing in it that's in another book that you didn't get to see in Batman. So, and similarly, I've read Night of the Owls now, Nightwing 8 and 9, Batgirl 9, Red Hood 9, All-Star 9. There are a couple I'm still about to read. Birds of Prey, I haven't read the finished yet. It just came in actually during the con. But I'm so excited to be a part of it. Just looking at their stuff, like looking at Nightwing is so good, and Batgirl is really, really so good, and so is All-Star, and I'm just proud to be next to those books. So I hope you guys like it. I really do. I mean, we tried really hard, and if you don't like it, we won't do it again. I mean, we wanted to do something that we thought would be fun, and I'm telling you from like an honest place with it. I'm not making it up in some way. It really is the truth. Like, it was a crossover designed to be, if you guys want to have fun with it as writers, have fun with it. If you don't. So hopefully the stories are organic enough and exciting enough that you'll all like them. We love them, so I hope you do too.
How long do you see yourself doing Batman?
Well, I'd stay in Gotham as long as you guys will have me, man. I was like nervous I get kicked out by the landlord like after issue 1 of Detective, so I'm happy to be here as long as you guys will read it. But I can tell you definitively, like, I'll be there for a while at this point. You're stuck with me through, the next couple big storylines, because I have one plan for right after the Court of Owls. It's going to be through 13 through about 17 or 18, and then I have one more plan. So you'll be with me I'll be there for a while. You'll at least about another year and a half or so, 2 years.
Judging by the sales, I see you doing it for years to come. As long as you're up for it, we're up for it.
I'm up for it. I'll stay in Gotham as long as you guys will have me, I swear. So thank you for having me on, too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott Snyder.